What's up, ladies? Thank you for joining me for another week of To the Core, my Friday episode of Revitalized Womanhood, the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I want to talk today about labels. And really, it's on my mind because it's so funny, the things that just filter around in my brain. And I'm like, oh, I should make a To the Core episode about that. Or, oh, I should talk about that. But then my inner critic comes out and is like, oh, you couldn't talk about that long enough. Or, oh, you would just go around and around in circles. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a sore throat and it's kind of hurts. And so I need to record this. And then I record later today and I've got this sore throat. So bear with me. So this last month in the Revitalized Sisterhood, our monthly topic was fear and acknowledging fear, not this whole perspective of conquering fear, or you can get past fear, or, I think I may have talked about this. It's kind of, obviously it's been a theme. So I probably talked about this in my last Friday To the Core as well, when we were talking about setting goals and where fear tends to stop us from doing those kinds of things, setting the goals that we really could be setting for ourselves rather than, sorry about that. Anyway, we won't get too far down that rabbit hole again. But today I want to talk about fear and about facing it and acknowledging that fear is a part of you. Fear is a part of you, just like, I think I talked about this, just like that movie Inside Out. Is that what it's called? Where it's in your brain, you've got anger, fear, is it joy? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. The little colors of emotions, right? Well, so we got done having this conversation on our weekly call in the Revitalized Sisterhood yesterday. We call them our rally calls, and we had this conversation. And one of my members actually sent me this story, and I really, really love this because I don't want to talk about fear right now in the sense that I've already talked about it with goal setting and how it holds us back and we should face it and embrace it. But I want to talk about it in terms of labels and putting labels on ourselves. Because when I started this community, when I opened up the Revitalized Sisterhood, October 1st, I had women introducing themselves to me, of course, like introducing themselves. And it was interesting how they would introduce themselves. It was interesting how they had these labels for themselves. Now, I am just talking about the women who I have met in my experience. I'm not talking about people who have legitimately been diagnosed with something or seeing therapists for these things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, in my experience, what I have happening here in the Revitalized Sisterhood. So don't go off on some tangent at me because I'm telling you that you don't have anxiety, but you do have anxiety because you've been diagnosed with it. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it was interesting when these women come into my sisterhood and they introduce themselves and they are attached to these labels. They have these labels for themselves. I'm not talking about wife, mother, career woman. I'm talking about characteristic labels like social anxiety, depression, fear of commitment, or perfectionism. That's one. People pleasing. That's one I hear a lot. So what's interesting to me is that this is actually how they see themselves. And because this is how they actually see themselves, oh, that just reminded me, I want to find some notes here while I'm talking about that. Because that's actually how they see themselves, they are taking on those characteristics. They are acting in a way that a person with social anxiety would act. They are acting in a way that a person with anxiety would act because their mind is telling them that that is who they are. They are thinking these thoughts, and those thoughts are creating actions, right? The thoughts create feelings, feelings create actions, right? So because they are thinking this way, they are becoming this person. We learned about that when we got done reading the Good Leaders. Oh no, Atomic Habits. There we go. James Clear, Atomic Habits. We learned about that. I love there's a section in that he talks about, I'm not telling you to change changing Gina, but if the Gina that I want to be is a competent Gina, I want to be an outgoing Gina, then I'm going to look at what an outgoing person does and I'm going to emulate those actions. I'm going to do, and it's kind of a little bit of pretending, right? It's a little bit of fake it till you make it almost, because I'm not an outgoing person. I mean, I am, but if I were not, this is something that would be very uncomfortable for me. And that's great. Guess where growth happens? When you're uncomfortable, right? What is it? Ryan Mickler loves to say, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's when growth really happens, is when you're uncomfortable. So just get used to it. Settle into the feeling of discomfort and know that if you're feeling uncomfortable, growth is happening. It's a positive. It's a good thing. So anyway, I love that James Clear talks about this in regards to I say it all the time to my ladies. I say, I'm a ninja, right? And everybody's like, no, you're not. You're not a ninja. And I'm like, oh, I'm a ninja. And I'm going to prove to you that I'm a ninja, right? So every day I'm going to post in my stories that I'm at the dojo and I've got my little ninja outfit on and I'm doing little ninja moves. And so I do that for a day or 2 days or 3 days. And I'm like, guys, I'm a ninja. And you're like, no, you're not. You're not a ninja. Maybe you went and you put on some clothes and you kind of did the ninja thing for a couple days. You're not a ninja. So every day, consistently, I am going to post that I am doing ninja things. Got the nunchucks and I've got the hayas and I'm wearing the outfit and everything. I am a ninja. So after however long it takes of me posting these things, all of a sudden I'm a ninja. And that's how people know me, because they've seen me doing these things. I am a ninja now. I am that person, right? So yeah, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to be comfortable, but I'm saying you make the choice to think the thoughts that you have in your own head, right? You make the decision to allow the kind of thoughts that are happening in your own head. If those thoughts are negative, if they are self-deprecating, if they are criticizing, you make the decision to stop that train of thought, stop that thinking. Be very intentional about it. If you can snap your wrist or with a hair tie or something, do something that triggers, something bad. I'm about to think something bad. I'm going to turn the table on it, right? I'm going to think something positive instead. We talked about this last night. One of my members said that she is turning bad talk, self-deprecating talk. Is that the right word? Am I using that word correctly? Criticisms. She's going to, when she feels them creeping up, she is going to turn them into affirmations, right? That's great. Another one said, well, sometimes I'm not in a right headspace to be able to do that. Sometimes I just need to hang out in the dark place where I'm at, and to pull myself out of it or to trick my brain into thinking something else, I put on Christian music, or I put on my spiritual music that I love and it brings me joy, and that takes my brain to a better place. Yes, good. That is you intentionally making a choice to change the thoughts that you're having in your brain, right? Where did it go? I'm not there yet. Sorry, I was looking for these specific notes. Well, anyway, so where I started with this was these labels these women come to me with, and I'm like, I don't see it. I do not see it. I hear you saying that you have social anxiety. I hear you saying that maybe you aren't the best fit to lead a squad because you have this social anxiety, or you doubt yourself, or you have imposter syndrome. I don't see that. I see this woman who is committing to a community of strangers and being part of it and engaging. And I see the amazing qualities. So we talked about why do we add these labels to ourselves? Why do we put these labels up in front of ourselves, kind of acting as if they were maybe a shield, right? A shield preventing us from having to do hard things. So if I say, again, ladies, I'm not saying if you actually have been diagnosed with this situation, yes, let's get you help that obviously I am not qualified to give you. But I'm saying, in my experience with the women I am working with right now, my members, they have this label of, say, social anxiety. Okay, well, do you really? Or have you just been using that as a shield to deflect from having to put yourself in kind of scary, uncomfortable situations of talking to people, of getting out of your comfort zone and actually having to engage with other people, actually having to have conversations? I know with me, I felt like when I started this podcast, and I still do, I mean, I've been at home for how many years with babies and kids, and I don't know how to have conversations with adults in a way that my brain allows to maybe sound as, see, I forget words. My brain isn't as eloquent. I'm not able to say things as eloquently, or maybe I'm not asking questions in a right way to get the answer that I'm looking for, right? And sometimes I kind of go around and around, but that is something that I acknowledge. It's a fear that I have, and I have faced every day doing this, sitting in front of this microphone and sitting in front of guests that I invite onto the podcast. It's something I have to face. So with these labels that we're putting on ourselves, is it just a label that we're putting on ourselves? I want you to sit in this thought. Is it just something that you're putting on yourself to avoid having to be uncomfortable? Because I guarantee you that if you can get past that, if you can be uncomfortable for that situation, maybe the next situation, maybe the next situation after that, all of a sudden you're going to be a ninja and it won't be uncomfortable anymore, right? You're going to put yourself in that. It's like when I was a dispatcher, and it's like officers, and it's like military. They train and they train and they train for different scenarios, right? So as a dispatcher, we would have to train for different scenarios, right? Active shooter, or choking, or a fire, structure fire. We would train for these situations, and we would go through these scenarios so that when that situation really arose, when it really was time for that our minds just kind of kick into, oh, I know what to do. I've been here before, right? That's the same as getting past your fear of doing something, right? You're putting yourself in a situation where you're uncomfortable and it's scary, and you're building up all of these what ifs in your head that are usually never what actually happens, right? In your head, you've created this, oh, it's going to be horrible. Oh, it's going to be awful. Oh, nobody's going to talk to me. I'm going to end up standing in the corner of the room by myself looking like awkward. It's never that, right? You usually get there, and it's usually people are welcoming and inviting. And unless you're hanging out with real dirtbag people, everybody's trying to make you feel at ease and comfortable, right? It's never the scenario that we build up in our heads. So I am asking you to, with this new year, with this 2023 focusing on me philosophy that I am trying to instill in every person that listens to my voice, I want you to think about that. Are you putting these labels on yourself because you're scared, or because you're nervous, or because it's not an actual label? It's not you. You are not that person, right? I think you are a very strong, beautiful, amazing woman, and you have the ability to do hard things, right? You have the ability to do literally anything. We can't do everything, okay? I'm not asking you to do that. That leads to burnout. That leads to bad things. But I am asking you to acknowledge to yourself that you can do anything. You can. I mean, if the need arises for you to be able to do something that's hard and uncomfortable, especially if it involves protecting your family or taking care of someone you love, you're going to do it. We do it all the time, right? So that is where I want you to embrace all of the discomfort. I want you to embrace the fear. I want you to embrace all the emotions you have. I want you to sit in those emotions and feel them and acknowledge them and recognize them. They are part of you. They act as Okay, so this gets me back to this story that one of my members sent me after our call last night. She sent me this email and it says, I like this story as far as recognizing that fear isn't always bad. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's part of us, right? Changing the perspective that fear is bad and to avoid it, we need to acknowledge that there's a place for fear, not letting it rule you, but not making it a villain either, right? Okay, so she tells me this story. About 20 years ago, there was a documentary made about the work of, is it Diane Fossey, who followed a tribe of chimps for several years. The gist of it is basically the chimp troops. There always exists a small number that are anxious or depressed and that tend to retreat to the outskirts of the troop, often socially disengaged, right? So Fossey decided to remove these agitated chimps to see what would happen. 6 months later, the entire community was dead. Okay, it was suggested that the anxious chimps were pivotal for survival. The outsiders, they were the ones who were sleeping in the trees on the edge, on the border, on the boundary of the community. They were hypersensitive and vigilant. The smallest noise would freak them out and disturb them, so they were awake most of the night. And we label such symptoms as like anxiety. But back when they are in these trees, they were the early warning systems for the troop, right? They were the first ones to scream, like, look out, like a predator is coming. So it initially saved the rest of the troop. So I love that. She sent that to me and I'm like, yes, I love that so much. I get it, that there is a need for these emotions. There is a need for these things. And actually, I found out from a therapist, Seth Studley was just on here, and he actually kind of diagnosed me a teeny bit, didn't, but kind of triggered something in me that I was like, oh my gosh, that's anxiety. Okay, like the things that I do that I can't complete a task, or that I'm instantly aggravated, or that I'm yelling at my kids, or I go home and rage clean. These are symptoms of anxiety. So I get it, you guys. I get it. I have them. But guess what? I don't label myself that way. I don't label myself as having anxiety. I think about it as, okay, I am frustrated. I am exhausted. I'm overworked. Okay. So what do I need to do? Where do I need to go back to my 4 core categories, right? Beliefs, bonds, body, biz. Where do I need to go back into those categories and adjust, pivot something in my life that's the spinning plates, right? Which one's slowing down and it needs attention. So if I'm flying off the handle, screaming at my family, it's because I'm overworked or I'm overwhelmed, right? So I need to get back to the gym, focus more on my yoga, get back to my breathing, journal more, right? Sit down with my thoughts and just get it out on paper. This is what it is. So get rid of the labels, right? If you want to, I want you to imagine the woman that you want to see yourself as, right? Does that make sense? I want you to imagine yourself in this ideal, if I were the ideal version of myself, what would that look like? I want you to sit and think about that. What would that look like? And then I want you to think, write it down. I mean, oh my gosh, make a little like diagram and you in the center and have little arms coming off it saying, okay, if I was this person in the center, and what would that look like? Okay, I would be outgoing. I would laugh more. I would be silly. I would be organized. I would be better at time management, right? These are mine, you guys. These are all mine. This is the person that I would be. Okay, so then have little arms. Did I call them arms or legs? Have little lines going off of those. Make your diagram from each of those bubbles. Now you've got little arms or legs coming off those saying, okay, if I want to be an outgoing person, what does that look like? What does an outgoing person look like? Okay, so guess what? Today, I am going to go out of my way, literally every day, to walk up to a stranger and say something to them. Like, you look cute today. A mom that's got a cute little baby. Oh my gosh, look at that cute little baby, right? If I want to be an outgoing person, I am going to do things that I think an outgoing person does. If I want to be an organized person, I'm going to start to do the things I think an organized person does. I'm going to write in my calendar more. I'm going to write down everything on my to-do list today. I'm going to make such a detailed list of things that even the dumbest things, drink a cup of coffee, wear a cuter shirt today, do my hair, things, because Matthew McConaughey says, right? Reminds us what's the funnest part about a to-do list? Crossing things off, right? So write lists. If that makes you feel like you're accomplishing something, write lists. Guess what? That's what an organized person would do. So I want you to embrace all of the discomfort, obstacles, feel those emotions, right? And then process them and generate those thoughts and put them into a place that's going to move you forward into better thoughts and better actions. So basically the idea behind it is your thoughts create feelings and feelings lead to actions, right? So sit in those feelings and think to yourself, if they're negative, you have to turn them into positives, right? You have to intentionally think to yourself, I'm the one who says what I think, right? I'm the one who allows thoughts into my brain. So am I going to allow anything into my brain that's negative? No. Do I want to hear someone else complaining all the time or saying negative things about things all the time? No. So why am I going to allow my own brain to do that? I'm not going to do that. We're going to be intentional about the narrative, right? We're going to be intentional about the narrative that's going on in our brains. And yes. Okay. That brings me to my next with goal setting. We've been talking a lot about goal setting and especially it's January, it's New Year, right? It's what everybody's doing. It's especially perfect because in the Revitalized Sisterhood, that's what we are doing. We are starting on our very first 90-day focused firing method, which is our 90 days of goal setting and tracking. So I want to remind you, while you are in this thought process, while you are in this place of setting these goals, you need to remember the goal doesn't matter. Does that make sense? Like the actual goal itself doesn't really matter. Like you losing 5 pounds, that's not going to make or break your life. You losing 100 pounds, yeah, that might make or break your life. But the point I'm making is the goal doesn't matter. It's the person that you're becoming by trying to make the goal happen, right? Are you following with that? So it's the goal doesn't matter. It's who you become along the way of making the progress, right? That's what matters, because no matter what, if you are intentional, if you are setting goals, if you are looking at what your vision is for the future and you're thinking about what your ideal self is and who that looks like and who you want that to be, and you are working towards that every day and you are consistent and committed to being a ninja, you will be a ninja, right? You will be that person. It's like the pebble. No matter what, you can throw the pebble in, and if that pebble is good and true and has nothing but happiness and goodness and ooey gooeyness tucked inside of that pebble, the ripples that come from it are going to be the same thing. So all the different parts of your life are going to be affected. You are just focusing on reading one book a month or something. You want to read some business book every month, and that's going to affect your brain. That's going to affect your mindset. That's going to make you thinking positively. That's going to make you love your husband more and not be so annoyed with anything. That's going to make you not snap at your kids because your brain is thinking in different ways, right? It's the ripple effect. It's all of it is just to put you in a place of becoming a better person, a better version of yourself, right? That ideal version. Does that make sense? My poor throat. I have the sorest throat. So I am working on, in case you don't know, and how could you, because the store is not up, the revitalizedwomanhood.com website will soon have a store. I have merchandise. I don't know if you've watched these on YouTube. You've seen me wear them. I have a crop top. I have a new Sherpa pullover that's amazing. I have a zip up hoodie. I have a cute little black tee and a beanie and the planner. If you haven't seen any of that yet, actually, by the time this episode comes out, that store should be up. Fingers crossed, right? I'm trying to pre-record. I'm trying to get these all done because Rick and we are leaving for the month of January. We will be in Costa Rica. So I will be recording from Costa Rica. This is going to be our first test at if we can still combine being the travel family, if I can still combine being the travel mama of Pure Imperfection with the podcaster, community grower of Revitalized Womanhood. We're going to see if those worlds can collide and see how well that goes. So by the time this comes out, actually go to revitalizedwomanhood.com and see if the store is up and go check out my merchandise. I would love that for you. And I would love to hear any thoughts you have on this topic. Please rate and review on whatever platform you're listening. And I would love to hear more about what you think about it. Screenshot, share it in your Instagram. Tell everyone you know. I appreciate you being here with me and spending your time with me again today. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.